The Council's signal flashed across the void, calling the leaders of every major species to the most dangerous planet ever recorded. It was a death world, a planet designed not by nature but by ancient systems meant to test the limits of life itself. Rocks that shifted unpredictably, storms that could strip flesh from bone, predators that were as clever as they were deadly. All of this awaited those who dared to step foot on its surface. The alien races had arrived in their massive ships confident, their minds filled with strategy and their ships brimming with technology. They believed survival could be calculated, controlled, and managed. The first to land were the Silurians, a crystalline species whose bodies reflected light in dazzling patterns. Their leader Varkol surveyed the red, cracked ground and the dark, boiling rivers. "We have no fear. Our shields are impenetrable, our drones are flawless. No planet can match our logic." His words were calm but carried a pride that the others recognized immediately. Next were the Zeftrians, tall, thin beings with delicate wings that glimmered in the sun. Their approach was more cautious. "Adaptation is our strength," their commander whispered. "We will observe first, strike second." They landed quietly, their feet barely touching the jagged rocks. The other species, each confident in their own methods, followed. Ships disgorged squads of heavily armed soldiers, scouts, and intelligent machines. Every species had its own idea of how to survive the ultimate test. The Silurians relied on shields and drones, the Zeftrians on speed and observation, and others had combinations of force, strategy, and intelligence. All of them, however, shared the same arrogance. They assumed the planet could be conquered like a chessboard, one move at a time. When humans finally arrived, the alien races paused to study them. The humans looked ordinary, small, fragile by comparison, with thin clothes and light tools. They carried no giant shields, no drones, no advanced weapons. Their ships were simple, designed only for travel, not combat. Some aliens snickered, whispering among themselves, "They will fail within hours." A Zeftrian officer said, wings fluttering nervously, "They have no advantage here." But humans did not rush to prove themselves. They stepped onto the cracked ground and simply looked around. One of them, a tall man named Daniel, bent to touch the soil. "It smells like iron and ash," he said. "Better start careful." His companion, a woman named Mara, nodded. "Stick together, move slowly, learn the planet. That's how we survive." The Council had only given minimal guidance. No species had yet passed the first day. The planet seemed alive in its hostility. Rivers of blackened liquid shifted without warning. Rocks fell from the sky, and the wind carried an almost tangible weight, as if it wanted to crush anyone who dared move. The aliens began deploying machines immediately. Silurian drones flew ahead, scanning, firing pulses at moving shadows. Zeftrian sent scouts to probe the terrain, but the death world was clever. The drones became tangled in thorned vines that grew instantly from the ground. Shadows that the scouts thought were safe turned out to be massive predators, camouflaged perfectly. Within hours, the Silurians had lost 2 drones and suffered serious injuries among their squad. The Zeftrians had almost walked into a pit that opened suddenly, swallowing one of their scouts alive. Panic began to spread. Meanwhile, humans did what humans had always done in the toughest environments they observed. They noticed the patterns in the shifting rivers, the slight tremor in the ground before a rock slide, the way predators reacted to sound and movement. They made traps from rocks and sticks, built shelters from fallen branches and hardened mud, and stayed low and quiet when danger passed nearby. Where the aliens relied on technology, humans relied on instinct and adaptability. By nightfall, the aliens were exhausted. Their energy shields had been drained, their drones destroyed, their soldiers injured or scared. Varkol of the Silurians stared at the humans' small camp, barely a few flames flickering in the darkness. "How do they survive with so little?" he muttered. The Zeftrians watched as Mara crouched beside a predator den, luring the creature with a small fire trap. When it lunged, she guided it harmlessly away, leaving the path open for the humans to pass. It was the first time the aliens realized that the humans were different. They did not fight the planet, they moved with it. They did not try to conquer the dangers, they learned from them. Each small fire, each careful trap, each observation brought humans further into the heart of the death world while other species stumbled, struggled, and failed. The next day, the Council's voice boomed over the planet. "No species has passed the test so far. Only adaptability, intelligence, and teamwork will allow survival. The aliens stiffened, exchanging worried glances. They had relied on power, strategy, and technology, and yet they were failing. Daniel and Mara led their small human group across a field of jagged obsidian. A storm rose quickly, black clouds spinning with lightning. Aliens' machines froze or melted in the acid-laden rain. Humans ducked under rocks and tarps, moving steadily and silently. Mara laughed softly. It's just weather. We can handle it. The Zeftrians watching from above murmured in disbelief. By the end of the day, most alien squads were either retreating to their ships or immobilized by fear. The humans had learned to predict the planet's patterns, when to move, when to hide, when to improvise. They discovered a predator's feeding path and used it to avoid being attacked. They made small innovations, water filters from leaves, traps that redirected the smaller predators, and even signals to communicate silently across distances. That evening, the humans gathered around their fire. They were tired, scratched, and muddy, but their spirits were high. We've survived the first day, Daniel said quietly, and tomorrow is worse. But we know this planet now. We know its ways, Mara smiled. Other species have technology, but we have experience. We can adapt. That is our strength. From a hidden observation point, the alien council watched. Varkol clenched his crystalline fists. This is impossible. They should be dead. Every calculation says they cannot survive. Another officer, a Zeftrian, shook his head. They are unpredictable. They are not following the patterns. They are learning and changing with the planet. The council's announcement cut across the sky again. The final challenge is coming. This trial will push even the strongest species to their limits. Panic rippled among the aliens. Some whispered about retreat, others about surrender, but the humans only nodded to each other. They had faced danger before, faced impossible odds, and come out alive. That night, as storms howled and strange shadows prowled the death world, humans rested lightly. Their eyes were open to the planet, alert yet calm. They were not relying on power or force. They were relying on what had always kept humanity alive: courage, observation, adaptability, and trust in each other. Somewhere in the dark, a predator watched them, its eyes reflecting firelight. It hesitated, then turned away. The humans had learned enough in one day to command even the instincts of the planet's deadliest creatures. The aliens could only watch, fear and awe mingling in their eyes. Every calculation, every strategy, every weapon had failed. And the humans, fragile, underestimated, simple, were still alive. As the first part of the trial ended, the humans looked at the horizon, where black clouds twisted like monstrous hands. Mara whispered, "Tomorrow it gets worse. But we are ready." Daniel nodded. "We are not just ready. We will survive. That is what humans do." The council's voice echoed one final time that night. Every species has failed. The death world waits for those brave or foolish enough to face its final test. And in the darkness, the humans smiled, ready to laugh with it, and not at it, when the next challenge came. The next morning, a strange quiet fell over the death world. The storms from the previous day had faded, leaving a stillness that seemed unnatural. The alien species, battered and humiliated, prepared themselves for the final challenge. Each commander was tense, calculating, hoping for some advantage that might save their pride and reputation. Varkol of the Silurians paced beside his crystalline troops. "We have been tested, yes, but this final challenge will be ours. Our shields are rebuilt, our drones repaired. The humans are fragile, one mistake, and they will fall like the rest." His words were sharp, but there was a trace of doubt behind them. The humans gathered quietly, observing the labyrinthine terrain before them. The final challenge was not a simple trial. It was a massive, ever-changing labyrinth of jagged rocks, deep crevices, sudden cliffs, and dense forests. Predators of all sizes roamed freely, some invisible until the last moment. The council had made it clear, this test would push every species to the edge of survival. Daniel surveyed the path ahead. "We have to stay alert. The labyrinth is not just dangerous, it learns. The traps, the predators, the paths. Everything will try to test us." Mara nodded. "We know this world better than anyone else now. Watch, listen, and move together." The humans adjusted their small packs, checking their simple tools, and began forward. The aliens rushed in with their technology, immediately triggering sensors, drones, and weapons. The Silurians' drones flew ahead, mapping the terrain. The Zeftrian scouts darted from shadow to shadow, wings flicking nervously. Other species relied on shields, force fields, and mechanized suits. At first it seemed they had the advantage, but the labyrinth was far from predictable. A sudden tremor shook the ground, sending boulders crashing down. The drones of the Silurians were smashed to fragments instantly. One of the Zeftrian scouts was pinned under a falling rock, wings tangled and broken. Panic spread quickly. Some species began arguing, blaming each other, their confidence crumbling under the labyrinth's pressure. Humans moved differently. They paused at the first tremor, observing the shifting ground. Daniel picked up a fallen branch and tested the soil. Move here slowly and watch the patterns. It's not random. It follows rules if you watch closely. Mara led the group over safer paths, marking the terrain with small, unobtrusive signs. The humans avoided traps naturally without triggering them, and used the environment to guide them rather than relying on weapons or shields. Hours passed. Aliens were losing members steadily, many retreating to regroup. The humans adapted continuously. They observed predator behavior, using small fires to distract larger beasts and leading smaller ones away. They made simple bridges from fallen trees and rocks to cross gaps that would have trapped heavier alien machinery. They communicated with subtle hand signals, conserving energy and remaining silent. At midday, the labyrinth threw its deadliest challenge. A massive cliff separated two sections of the path with a storm raging above. Acid rain fell in sheets and lightning struck unpredictably. The aliens panicked. Varkol's drones were useless in the wind and acid, and the Zeftrians could not fly safely in the storm. Several species retreated, unwilling to risk further loss. The humans, however, had already seen a way forward. Mara spotted a narrow ledge under the cliff face, shielded from the storm. "We move one at a time," she instructed. "Follow my steps exactly." Daniel went first, testing each foothold. Slowly, carefully, the group crossed the ledge, staying low and moving silently. Behind them, the aliens could only watch in disbelief. Machines had failed, wings had torn, and shields were useless, yet humans had crossed unscathed. The labyrinth's predators were relentless. Massive beasts with armored hides emerged, eyes glowing. They roared and charged. The aliens fired everything they had, but the creatures were smarter than their technology could handle. One Silurian drone was destroyed in an instant, and a Zeftrian was knocked off balance, barely saved by companions. The humans acted differently. They did not attack the predators directly. They used smoke, fire, and natural traps to redirect the creatures away. They stayed calm, coordinated, and adjusted continuously. A predator that might have crushed an alien squad was carefully guided into a pit the humans had discovered the day before, harmlessly trapped. The aliens were stunned. No advanced weapon had done what humans achieved with patience and ingenuity. By evening, only a handful of alien teams remained in the labyrinth. Their ranks were decimated, morale broken. The humans were still together, tired and scratched, but fully functional and alert. Mara and Daniel shared a look. "One more stretch," Daniel said. "Then the council will see what real survival means." The final section of the labyrinth was a deep canyon, dark and twisting, with a river of molten rock at its base. Bridges were narrow and unstable. The air was filled with smoke and the roar of unseen predators. Most alien species froze at the entrance. Varkol's crystalline fists were clenched, but there was fear in his eyes. "We will succeed," he said, though even he did not fully believe it. The humans stepped forward carefully. They measured each step, testing rocks, using fallen logs as bridges and helping each other across gaps. Mara spotted a predator lurking in the shadows and whispered, "Wait for it. Now." She clapped her hands, and the predator charged harmlessly past them, distracted. The humans moved as one, almost invisible to the dangers around them. It took hours, but the humans reached the canyon's end. They had survived every trial, every trap, every predator, without the heavy reliance on technology that had failed every other species. The council's signal sounded across the labyrinth, echoing in the canyon walls. All other species have failed. Only one species has passed the Deathworld test. Humanity has survived. Varkol's jaw tightened and he lowered his head in defeat. The Zeftrian's wings drooped in disbelief. The remaining alien species looked at the humans with awe, envy, and a grudging respect. The creatures of the planet, which had been the Deathworld's guardians, seemed to recognize the humans' dominance, bowing in subtle ways or stepping aside as the humans passed. Daniel and Mara looked around at their group. They were battered and tired, but their eyes shone with triumph. "We did it," Mara said softly. "We survived where others failed." Daniel nodded. "Not because of strength, not because of tech, but because we adapt, we observe, we trust each other." The council's voice echoed one last time. "Let this be a lesson to all. Arrogance is no match for adaptability. Technology alone cannot replace courage, intelligence, and teamwork." Humans left the labyrinth together, walking side by side, steady and confident. Other species followed more slowly, nursing their losses, shaken by the unexpected truth. The underestimated species had outlasted every other. The Death World, which had been designed to destroy, had revealed humanity's true strength. In the days that followed, news of the humans' triumph spread across the galaxy. Stories of their survival, ingenuity, and unbreakable spirit inspired some species and humbled others. The alien civilizations began to reconsider their over-reliance on technology and arrogance, while humans continued their journey, quietly aware of what they had achieved. The planet behind them seemed less hostile now, as if acknowledging that the true masters of survival had emerged. The humans, once underestimated and mocked, had become legends. The Council, once confident in its judgment, now studied humanity with caution and curiosity. And somewhere in the shadows of the Deathworld, predators and landscapes alike waited, but the humans were ready. They had faced the impossible, and they had learned the ultimate truth. The universe does not reward strength alone. It rewards those who adapt, endure, and survive. The other species would remember this day forever. The humans had laughed quietly, not at the danger, not at the council, but at the certainty that life could be conquered only through unity, ingenuity, and courage. The Deathworlders had won, and the galaxy had taken note.